Really don't think y'all understand how bad it is in the southeast right now. We have towns that don't exist anymore. Chimney Rock it's gone. The city of Asheville is cut off from the world. This is not an exaggeration. All the bridges leading into the city have been washed away. They have no food, no power, no water, no internet, no cell service. They don't even have radio. I've been running the generator for the last 3 days, and we're starting to run out of gas. And this is on Highway 123 heading from Aisley to Greenville. And this was a 1 mile long line to get gas because they were the only people we knew around that had gas left. We got all the way to the end and they were out. They had no gas. We checked every gas station in Pickens and Easley and Liberty, nothing.
Hey YouTube world, Harvest is Plenty. Thanks for stopping by to check out the video. So the devastation and the death toll continues to climb in the Appalachian Mountains area. Black Mountain, Asheville, Weaverville, Chimney Rock, all those areas that are caught up in the wake are in the path of Hurricane Helene. Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, parts of Georgia, and as well as Florida. And then there is this.
A group of students from Girard College that traveled to Asheville, North Carolina last week is still among the many people stranded due to Helene. Action News reporter Charles Watson live at Girard College tonight. And Charles, we know you spoke with some of the parents of one of those students.
Yeah, that's right, Rick. I did speak to parents, and as you can imagine, they're upset and worried about their kid who drove down to Asheville, North Carolina for a camping trip a week ago. They were supposed to return to Girard College here behind me last Friday, but the destruction from Hurricane Helene prevented that. Now most parents say they don't know when their kid will be back.
I'm upset. I'm angry.
Terrell Dargan is bubbling with emotions as his daughter Tiara and dozens of other Girard College 9th grade students sit stranded on a camping trip in Asheville, North Carolina. This after rain and wind remnants from Hurricane Helene devastated the area.
We've seen all these floods and stuff, and we got worried about, well, where the kids at.
The students left for the trip in the Blue Ridge Mountains with an organization known as Outward Bound a week ago. They were supposed to return Friday, but when it looked like that wasn't possible, Girard College contacted the parents.
The kids is doing okay. They got enough food, enough water. We don't know when we're going to be able to get them out of there.
Earlier today, the school's president released a statement reading in part, quote, all students and adults are safe and are being cared for while Outward Bound works with local and state officials to clear the roads that provide access to the camp.
You know, it really sucks to hear the stories. People who are separated from their loved ones, people who are stuck with no food, no water. I heard that the 911 systems went down. And so they're trying to get messages out and telling people to text this number if you need help. But in a lot of places, there are also no cell service. So I'm not sure how you're going to be able to text with no cell service, no internet service. Maybe the messages will still get through. I don't know. That's why it's important for you guys to prepare and be your own first responder. Have food, have water, have medical supplies on hand. That's important. I remember I was in this course and the instructor stood up in the front of the room, and the first thing he said before it even began, he said, training trumps gear. And I'm like, okay, let's see where he's going to go. And he talked about having a skill set. Yes, having a first aid kit is good, but having a training to be able to use the stuff that's inside the first aid kit is even better. And if you don't have a first aid kit, but you have training, you can improvise. And that's why I always recommend that you guys take Stop the Bleed course. It's free. You learn about tourniquets. You learn how to pack wounds. I've taken Stop the Bleed maybe 4 or 5 times now. I took a class on bleeding control. I also recommended that you guys take a basic first aid CPR AED course and stay up with the certifications on that, because you just never know when you, not me, not somebody else, but you may be called into duty to help somebody, maybe a family member, maybe your neighbor, maybe a stranger on the street, but you may be put in the position to help somebody, and it will be up to you, whether to stabilize them or allow them to bleed out and die. Who knows? I'm sure many people have suffered injuries from being caught up in the flood water, broken arm, broken leg, fractured wrist, fractured ankle, or whatever the case may be. And they're cut off. The only way to get in is by air. You can't even get in by boat because so much debris has fallen into the rivers, into the waterways, that is clogged up. Plus, you have all of these dams that's at a risk of failing. So you don't want to have people rolling down a river in a boat and the dams fail and the boats capsize. Now you have even more people, first responders. Now they're in the water fighting for their lives. Also, think about this. During flooding times, animals get loose. And when I say animals, I mean alligators, snakes, like all of those things are also out there in the water. You know, so you have to be very careful when you're out there doing search and rescue. I got trained personally in light search and rescue through the CERT team, and you know, you learn about a lot of these things. Training trumps gear. I want to have the training underneath my belt so I could be an asset to myself, to my family, to my friends, to my community. And that's what I'm recommending to you. Be your own first responder. Personally, in every vehicle that I have, every vehicle that's parked in my driveway, there's a first aid kit in the trunk. There's also blowout kits. There's also medical go bags, or medical get home bags that have gauze, tourniquets, chest seals, all of that stuff in it. And I'm trained to use it, and I train people who live in my house how to use these things. We go out and we take Stop the Bleed classes together. I remember when I took my first Stop the Bleed class, I went to a trauma center to take it. And as I was sitting there, a Boy Scout group comes in with like 6 little kids. The Boy Scout leader brought these little kids in, and I say little kids, they were around maybe 8, 9, 10, to I think to age 14. And they came in, sat in the back of the room, and they learned about tourniquets, and they learned how to pack wounds. And I thought it was awesome that these kids were learning this at such a young age. You know, many cities across the country, including like I did the thing about the kids in Philadelphia. Stop the Bleed, they were running courses through the Philadelphia public schools and teaching those kids how to deal with tourniquets, packing wounds, and bleeding control, because Philadelphia is a violent city in some areas. People are getting shot and things like that, and they taught these kids how to deal with that. So these kids have lessons. They have techniques and skills to be able to take care of themselves or a stranger on the street. You guys should have skill sets too to be your own first responder, because sooner or later the grid is going to go down, not just in a localized area like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, but across the entire country. So no matter where you live, whether you're in California, Chicago, New York, Maine, South Dakota, North Dakota, Arizona, Texas, Denver, it doesn't matter where you're at. Sooner or later, we all will be facing some type of crisis one way or the other. And we're going to be relying on God. We're going to be relying on ourselves, our neighbors, and our friends to see us through that crisis. And you need to be ready and prepared for it. Yes, get the supplies ready. Have them in your house, have them in your car, have them in your bag, or whatever, wherever you want to keep it. But also, training trumps gear. Get the training, guys. Be your own first responder. Also, like the gentleman, his kid is trapped down in North Carolina, and the dad is upset, you know, for many reasons. I guess they should have cut the trip short and came back. I don't know. I know that you can't tell a parent how to respond when it's their kid that's stuck out someplace, because you would probably feel some kind of way if your kid was stuck and trapped someplace too. So you can't tell a parent how they should feel. But if you have kids, and if your kids are in high school, middle school, and they go on these field trips and things like that, know where your kids are at all times. Make sure you have emergency numbers and stuff like that to reach out in case something happens. Get a map. People don't even have maps anymore. People rely on GPS, Google Maps, their cell phones, and things like that. Another thing, I went out, I purchased maps. I purchased a road atlas. I keep that in every car that I have. There's maps and road atlases in case I need to get somewhere, in case GPS goes down. I just simply pull out a map and use it. Again, training trumps gear. Get ready, guys. I love you guys. When things go down, I want you to be ready and prepared. In addition, keep God first. Keep God first. Keep God first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and everything will be added unto you. Cover yourself in the blood of Jesus. I have a SHTF series that is getting ready to come up, and it's going to get down to the nitty gritty. It's going to be detailing a gentleman who went through grid down for 1 year in Bosnia, and he's going to tell about the horrors that he faced and his family faced. And I didn't want to do it but I think people don't truly understand what's at stake here. So I'm going to read to you guys his story, and it's going to be jarring for a lot of people and frightening for a lot of people, but I want you guys to hear the real deal reality of what happens and what goes on. All right, so stay tuned for that as well. I love you guys. May the good Lord continue to bless you and your family.
Thank you. A Greensboro woman safely made it back to the Triad after being stranded in Buncombe County due to flooding.
Laura Williams says she was staying at her home in Montreat, which is just east of Asheville, when the remnants of Hurricane Helene caused many roads in that town to become impassable. Fox 8's Justin Lundy spoke with her this evening, joins us live in Greensboro. Justin, we can only imagine what she had to endure to get back home.
Yeah, Williams says that she didn't have power or water for several days, and also what is usually a 2-hour trip ended up being a 5-hour detour because many of the roads were washed out. Now check out this cell phone video that she provided of Montreat in road conditions. What was once a street looks more like a river, and she says when the floodwaters receded, crews helped build temporary bridges to make the town accessible again. After making it back to Greensboro on Sunday, Williams spent today buying bulks of supplies from Costco to bring back to her neighbors that are still in the mountains.
Neighbors, the folks I live next to, they got one of their friends to come and bring me gas, and that was what allowed me to get out and get a couple other people out into Charlotte. And so, you know, I really want to help them out, bring some stuff back. My parents are RVers, so they got a couple of generators, and nobody has electricity up there. The water's out, the electric's out. There's no Wi-Fi anywhere, so just, you know, a couple of generators can really help.
The disaster in western North Carolina after Helene. There are areas that are just completely cut off. Days after the storm hit, many people still have no power. They don't have cell phone service. They're just abandoned and struggling right now in isolation. But amid this devastation, there are also these incredible stories of resilience that are emerging, like the story of this man, Sam Perkins. He walked 11 miles to reach his elderly parents' house, hiking along a heavily damaged road, carrying bottles of water and fresh food after he hadn't heard from them in 2 days. Sam Perkins joins us now. And Sam, I know so many of us, you know, can try to understand the fear you had of not being able to reach your parents, knowing the devastation from the storm, and wondering if they're still alive. First off, how are your parents doing right now?
They're good. They are very much on an island. Where they are is, it's not in a low-lying river area, it's up on a ridge. And so a lot of the roads are washed out, and there are landslides, and there's really not a route in or out by vehicle right now.
So they really are in isolation, and you were there. You have since left because you didn't want to take up the limited amount of resources they had. So take us back to the beginning of your journey. You couldn't reach your parents for 48 hours. You became concerned, not knowing whether they were dead or alive. What was that 11-mile hike to get to them like?
So I had done the math in my head, and, you know, figuring how long someone can go without water, you know, nonetheless, if they need more immediate medical attention. And so at 48 hours, I decided I needed to try to get there. And the roads from the town at the bottom of the mountain, Marion, are closed, and there was a trooper blocking the highway there, and said, if you want to walk, you can. And I had a backpack and filled up water, some food, supplies, a power bank for recharging phones, and just started trekking. And I got I was able to hitchhike with someone for a little bit of the ways at the bottom where the road was relatively clear until it wasn't. We hit a spot where the road had washed out. There was a really bad landslide. Ironically, there was a crew up from Florida helping the chainsaw, and at that point started a trek the rest of the way up the mountain to get to them, and eventually did. And my dad was out, you know, trying to do what work he could with what juice his chainsaw had, and you know, just was the greatest relief I've had in my life, and just hugged him as tight as I could, and you know, bawled, and then went inside and found my mom and did the same.
I can't imagine how emotional that was, because as you're on this trek, you really thought maybe they didn't survive, right? And then you see them. I mean, bring us in more to that moment.
So on the trek up, it was concerning enough for folks who were right by a creek, and my parents are high enough away from the big creek by them that I figured they didn't get directly flooded, but I was worried about landslides, worried about trees, and I can't tell you how many landslides and collapsed roads and trees I had to cross to get to them. And so I kind of got more and more worried the more that I went up, because it just got worse and worse. I mean, there were undoubtedly tornadoes up there, and it was the most, you know, exhausting hike and kind of a crawl through a jungle gym of trees and landslides I've ever had to do. But I'm glad I did it, and I'm, you know, relieved to know they're okay, their neighbors are okay, and got a list of calls and needs, and kind of came back and didn't want to use up any of their water or food staying there, so I came back and did what I could from this end.
Wow, Sam Perkins, what a son. Oh my gosh. And what a story. Just the challenge of the physical challenge, the emotional challenge, and you did it, and you got to your parents, and they are okay, thankfully. We really appreciate you coming on to share your just amazing story, Sam.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I hope folks will keep this area in mind. You know, this is a really big season typically for folks up there with leaf season, so when everything's back open, I really hope folks will, you know, visit the whole region from Asheville to Boone, and especially this area of Little Switzerland.
Certainly, we hope so too. Sam, thank you.